Hey everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I am your teacher Bilal Kurd, and in today's lesson, we are going to talk about the answering skills that are relevant for paper 4. I have already covered in great detail as to how you can do analysis and evaluation in your answers. So, in this particular video, I'm just going to talk about the relevance of these skills with respect to your paper 4. So, this is the marking criteria or the marking table, as you can see. And in order to reach the highest marks possible, you can see that there's a difference. Like this range, when you talk about this range, level 2, if you talk about this range, the difference between this and this when it comes to analysis and evaluation, let's talk about analysis first. Since you would know that paper 4 is a business strategy paper, so if let's say for example you talked about the individual elements of the strategy. So let's say for example you're attempting question number 2 and you made one paragraph on 5 forces and the other paragraph on SWOT and PEST, right? And then you gave a conclusion that was justified in context. Since you did not evaluate or analyze the overall strategy, so you will not be able to touch level 3. So this means that you will, if let's say there is sufficient knowledge in your answers, so you'll get 3 marks for knowledge, you'll get 2 marks for application if sufficient links are made, you'll get 6 marks provided that your individual analysis, the analysis of individual elements is correct, and you will get a maximum of 5 in evaluation as well. So this means out of 20 you will be able to land up with 16 marks. And if let's say for example you want to reach the higher range of marks, then what you have to do is you have to analyze the overall strategy both in question number 1 and in question number 2. And along with analysis, it would be great if you could perhaps demonstrate evaluation as well, justified in the context of the business. So this is pretty much the table. And now let me take you towards, because this particular section will also form a part of exam tips as well. Let me take you quickly towards knowledge. It is common to see that students start off their answers with definitions. So if let's say for example you're defining a lot of terms, you're defining corporate culture, you're defining business strategy, you're defining strategic management, even if you write 10 definitions, you only get 1 mark. Sir, what if I skip the definition? Can I still get 3 marks for knowledge? Yes, you can. How? By mentioning different business terms in your answers. Let's say for example, the case says that the business introduced 0-hour contracts. So the business introduced 0-hour contracts, and then you, for example, mention in your answers that because of the introduction of 0-hour contracts, the business would have benefited from flexibility in labor and a lower wage cost because they would not have to be paid the minimum payment. Now this thing is only possible, or this scenario is only possible if you have sufficient knowledge of the 0-hour concept, which you do in this case, and therefore the examiner will reward marks for knowledge. So if you mention key terms and just identify their benefits or identify limitations, you get marks. And then as you proceed forward into diving into reasons and consequences and impacts, then you get marks for analysis and evaluation. So this is pretty much for knowledge. Even if you do not know the definition, you can skip it and directly delve into the answer. That is okay as well. Application, how to gain 2 on 2 on application. Now it's very important to form links, as much links from the case. So for example, I have written an example. Business did this in appendix 1. Let's say it's written that business bought another factory to increase capacity. And appendix 2 shows you the increase in market share, for example. Or let's say for example appendix 2 shows you the increase in output. You are given data of capacity utilization and the total output or the total production in units. So what you did was you first talked about what the business did in appendix 1, which would have led to something happening in appendix 2, eventually leading to something happening in appendix 3. Now when you're forming links, you get marks. You're actually doing analysis, and this analysis is justified, and this analysis is pretty much applied and talked about in context of the business. So you get 2 marks for application. If you were just to state one particular aspect, you will get limited application and won't be able to score good marks in analysis and evaluation as well, because all of them are related. So when you talk about analysis, how do you get what is analysis in paper 4? This is basically a demonstration for question number 1. It can pretty much be the same for question number 2 as well. You just need to change the tense. And if you are unsure regarding the questions, watch my video where I've explained the relevant syllabus content and the question breakup in paper 4 as well. The link is in the description. So if you talk about analysis would involve these 3 steps. A detailed video of analysis is also recommended to watch before watching or continuing with this video. So you can follow analysis in these 3 steps. And let me show you an example where a candidate shows a limited analysis and another candidate shows a developed analysis. So for example, I'm going to use Ryan's form, the specimen paper. Then again, link is in the description of the detailed past paper solution. So let's say a candidate does a limited analysis. RF purchased a new building which increased production facilities and also customer base. Now this is limited analysis. Why? Because somehow the candidate stops here. And in order to develop your analysis further, you need to form a chain. And how do you form a chain? For example, increased capacity. That means that more farm produce can be grown, such as sugarcane, which would have led to economies of scale and lower average cost, ultimately leading to increased profitability in the year. Now whatever is the year in the particular case, you can talk about that, and in case this information is not present in the case, you can comment on its absence and gain evaluation marks as well. So evaluative comments will only follow a developed chain of argument. If you do not develop your analysis, you would not be able to evaluate it in great detail as well. So make sure to form a chain of analysis and then support it with evaluative comments. It's up to you whether you mention relevant absence of data, whether you mention that ultimately this would depend on, it's completely up to you. And if in case you do not have much idea about evaluation, then again I would suggest to watch one of my videos of evaluation. The link is in the description. Alright, so when you talk about evaluation in paper 4, there can be some certain sample statements that I have written for you people. Some of them have increased relevance for question number 1, whereas some of them have increased relevance for question number 2. You can see the color coding, yellow for question 1 and green for question number 2. So I would want you to go through all of these evaluative comments and make sure that whenever you mention these comments, they are applied in context. I've seen many students, they just write evaluative comments that the business would need to consider the external environment, for example, pest and SWOT. No, why? Why do you say so? What is something in pest that would be very important for this business? For example, let's say the economic environment, because the business has to raise finance for the new strategy, so interest rate would matter a lot. And they seem to be absent from the case. So whatever you're mentioning, it needs to be talked in complete context of the business mentioned in paper 4. And the type of business would also be significant. If it's a B2B business, as you can see in the paper March, or if it's the B2C business, as you can see in the specimen paper, your evaluation and the context would differ. So make sure that you write your evaluative comments in context of the case that has been provided to you. If any of these evaluative comments seem unclear to you, please mention that in the comments and I will give my understanding and make sure that you understand these evaluative comments well. So we'll keep it here. Thank you so much and happy learning.